Alright, lobbies and gentlegrams, in today's episode of Akademiks in Drizzyland, we gotta talk about the lobracity of the long-raging, lard-infused, lobby-loving Looney Tune, the Big Mac of Snackademics, saying that the King Kung Fu Kenny killed hip-hop. Also clicking up with the Triple K, catastrophic, mustache man munching, maniac, Mr. Kanye West. A lot of hilarious Henny hijinks from the humongous hippopotamus of hip-hop, which I think poses a big problem within the future of Big Mac of Snackademics' career. Let's get into why both Akademiks and Kanye are jealous of Kendrick, everything that went down with this Akademiks and Kanye interview, and what this means for all the Big Macs and Henny bottles that Big Mac of Snackademics is about to chew. So, lobbies and gentlegrams, we're going to start with Akademiks, but you're going to see this problem stretches far beyond the bloated fanboy of the balding bearded BBL buffoon. But I think he's crafting this narrative because Akademiks is very aware that a shift is happening. It's not just within the music, it's not just within who's the top artist in the game. This is a direct threat to his area of expertise as well, hip-hop media. Now you might be saying, who is this nobody who has a fraction of the amount of subscribers as Akademiks and can barely fit a fraction of the amount of Big Macs in his gullet as Big Mac of Snackademics can? And you're right, I have no authority to establish when a certain party is dying. I'll let Kendrick be the one to establish that. But Akademiks recently had a very interesting take on Kendrick, as well as very interesting sit-downs with Kanye West and another sit-down with the entire hip-hop S-Offender Avengers collective. Adam 22, Trap Lord Ross, Vlad, Wack 100. So I'm gonna share my thoughts on all that, and you guys let me know if you're seeing this same pattern that I'm noticing here. So Big Mac of Snackademics said that he spoke to a couple of his rapper friends and all of them felt the same way, in that Kendrick is responsible for killing hip-hop. Now mind you, this is after he single-handedly revitalized the stagnant state of mainstream hip-hop that we had seen in most years throughout the early 2020s. Hip-hop, I believe, reached its peak in being the most consumed genre within the music industry in around 2018. And ever since then, it's been on a slow and steady decline, down and down each year, to where it reached its low in 2023. Ironically, we hadn't seen a single hip-hop song hit the #1 on the Billboard charts until the very end of 2023 with Drake and J. Cole's First Person Shooter. But all of that changed in 2024, large in part thanks to the beef, but just as much thanks to the entire GNX album and all of the hits produced off that project. Luther to this day is still #1 on the Billboard charts. It produced multiple top 5 hits, 2 #1 songs. It's still outselling Drake's album from last month in its 4th month on the charts. And it was the first time in a long time where not only did we start seeing, bar-focused music back at the top of the charts, but producing full cohesive albums that people can enjoy front to back was back at the forefront. There's a reason Kendrick didn't put Not Like Us on that album. There's a reason why he kept it at only 12 tracks. It was meant to be concise. It wasn't crazy, overcomplicated, or intensely deep like a Mr. Morale or a To Pimp a Butterfly. It was exactly what hip-hop needed to feel alive again, to feel that spark, and for people to go back and actually sit down and unpack full complete albums, which again is not something that has happened within mainstream hip-hop in a long time. And that's not even to mention all the other massive moments Kendrick gave us, the pop-out concert, all the music videos that we sat down and dissected, the Grammy Awards, the Super Bowl. The last time I could remember big moments on that magnitude within hip-hop were probably all the way back to 2018 when Kanye did that 5-album run with Pusha T, Kid Cudi, Nas, etc. Or even Drake's album that year with Scorpion giving us a bunch of, #1 hits off that project and a bunch of #1 features. My point is, we haven't felt a moment like GNX, we haven't felt a moment like Kendrick's 2024 in a long time within hip-hop, and simultaneously, he brought hip-hop back to the forefront of the mainstream, with hip-hop seeing an increase, a large increase within 2024 consumption versus 2023. And I promise this is going to lead back to Akademiks, but for my final point here, this was very important for the future of mainstream hip-hop, and Kendrick was very aware of that, emphasizing that he started the year 2024 off with Like That because he saw people putting hip-hop on the back burner, people putting a lack on the importance of competition. So he said, F all that, we got to bring this back to the essence of what it was. And that's a big threat for Akademiks, which I'll explain shortly, but it's also a big threat for a lot of the rappers that Akademiks is talking about here.
Bro, I talked to a few rappers, and obviously they're not woke rappers, they're not lyrical rappers. A bunch of them feel like Kendrick killed hip-hop, bro. I feel like, it's not even I feel, this is what they told me. Yo, bro, he made hip-hop so lame where it's like, is just over-analyzing. like this is about to be like battle rap again. Like the whole genre is battle rap.
And really listen carefully to what he's saying here, right? Like he emphasizes he's speaking to rappers, but it's not lyrical rappers. It's not, as he puts it, woke rappers, which I don't even know what he means by that. And he's saying like hip hop is dead because Kendrick is trying to make the whole thing about battle raps, about lyrics, right? He's talking about how non-lyrical rappers feel threatened in this new environment. And that's what's crazy to me is like, you're threatened because the bar's been raised. The standard has been heightened. The same old song and dance, no pun intended, the same old formulas are not going to work in an age where people are finally being fed something that's mentally stimulating. It's like if you're used to eating a gourmet meal every day, going and eating McDonald's, unless you're big Akademiks, you're going to feel sick from it. And we know the type of rappers that Akademiks is referencing here when he says these non-lyrical, non-woke rappers, right? Akademiks, since the very beginning of his career, has been very calculated in pushing a lot of toxicity within hip-hop. And I'm not even talking, the war in Chirac and all that. I'm talking about the actual artists that he's propped up ever since he got his platform, right? So Akademiks' first big look was on Everyday Struggle. That's when a face was put to the name. Before that, he was just, making YouTube videos like I am right now, talking about the news, talking about what's going on. Everyday Struggle was when we actually saw Akademiks and when he formally became a hip-hop media personality. At the time, it was a debate show between him and Joe Budden, where Joe, being a retired rapper, was obviously more focused on dissecting lyrics, discussing, the titans that pushed the culture forward, discussing albums that at that time had just released that were really pushing creative boundaries or making a statement, albums like 444 by Jay-Z, Damn by Kendrick. Meanwhile, Akademiks was face of the youth. And with that, a lot of the topics on Everyday Struggle became diluted with artists and nonsense that Akademiks was an expert in. Artists like 6ix9ine, Lil Uzi, Lil Yachty, Migos. A lot of these artists aren't bad, but this was at a time when, streaming became the dominant form of music consumption. There was a massive shift within the type of artists that, hip-hop was pushing to the forefront with the whole SoundCloud era, the 2016 XXL freshman class, and Akademiks was their voice. He had the largest Instagram platform in all of hip-hop. He was like the new world star, where he would post any music that he wanted at the forefront of discussion, all the different beefs, especially the ones that 6ix9ine would engage in on Instagram. Akademiks was like the puppeteer behind that whole class of rappers. Same thing with No Jumper. And as Akademiks ascended into popularity, so did that style of hip-hop. And that was great for Akademiks, right? If he's friends with the Lil Yachty's, the 6ix9ines, the A Boogies with the hoodies, the Trippie Reds, he's able to capitalize off of not only posting about them, not only talking about them, but also sitting down with them, promoting their music. That's money into his pocket, because not only is he getting paid by their labels to promote the music, but he simultaneously becomes this authority figure within the, SoundCloud mumble rap environment, and becomes the go-to guy for all the news, for all the exclusive info related to that niche. And as that niche grows in popularity, so does Akademiks' place within hip-hop media. But again, if you've been paying attention, that type of music is not making nearly the same impact that it was just a couple of years ago. We've seen a whole class of rappers come and go. Uzi went from selling 300,000 first week to selling 60,000. Polo G went from selling 150 to 30,000. Flavio Foreign and Lil TJ are more known in 2025 for beefing with streamers than they are for their music. 6ix9ine is... Can someone tell me where 6ix9ine is? I don't even know. Trippie Redd, A Boogie with the hoodie, Nav, The Baby, Lil Baby. It's looking scary for that whole class of rappers. And if they haven't fallen off commercially, unfortunately, a lot of them ended up deceased or incarcerated. Look at Lil Durk, Pooh Shiesty, 42 Dugg, Blueface. Rest in peace to Pop Smoke, XXX, Juice WRLD. A lot of the biggest artists from that era that Akademiks was pushing and that he came up in the same time in, a lot of them are either gone or can't sell an album to save their lives. I mean, the numbers are even looking lower for Akademiks' Glizzy Gobbling Graham, Lobbery the Lullaby Lunatic. People are begging for a shift, and Kendrick was spearheading it. And Akademiks will downplay it or make excuses that, Kendrick is turning hip-hop into a Me Too movement and is having some negative impact on the culture, which is stopping other artists from releasing their projects, even though Akademiks' most listened to songs from 2024 were Not Like Us and Euphoria. But he emphasizes that a lot of these artists that he speaks to, mainly street rappers or non-lyrical rappers, they feel like Kendrick has made it harder for their own music to get attention.
And I ain't gonna lie, most of the niggas who told me that, some of them are street niggas and some of them just make regular music. Like, they feel like it's harder to get attention doing what they did because Kendrick just turned it into a Me Too movement. You feel what I'm saying?
And maybe that's why we haven't seen a lot of major releases so far in 2025. Like, people are scared to drop music. People are scared to flop. And again, this has a direct impact on Akademiks' spot within hip-hop media. But first, you have to understand the type of media personality that Akademiks is. Akademiks never made a name off of thought-provoking commentary. He never put an emphasis on delivering engaging content that was really actually focused on the music. It was always centered around the artist, but at its core, it was about the salacious, click-driving controversy that would simply bring more eyeballs to his brand. We saw this with his first entrance into the game, Warren Chirac. Without ever even showing his face, you knew him as the Warren Chirac guy. Then, around the time of Everyday Struggle, he was the only media personality to platform 6ix9ine, and really platform him to the highest degree, being the first one to post any of his antics, propping up all of his issues with other artists. Then, when 6ix9ine faded away, Akademiks became his own version of 6ix9ine, gaining more popularity than ever by downplaying and beefing with other rappers, Meek Mill, Lil Baby, Freddie Gibbs, etc. But all this time, the commentary was never on the music. It was always on the BS surrounding the music. And that's no different than today when Akademiks had possibly the biggest interview of his career with the artist who, unfortunately, in 2025 epitomizes antics over art, Mr. Kanye West. And in his current mental state, there was no one better for Kanye to sit down with in hip-hop than DJ Akademiks. You want to make fun of Jay-Z's children? You want to cause a bunch of drama related to Kendrick and Drake? You want to make the most outlandish headlines possible? There's no one better to platform you to do those things than DJ Akademiks. So of course, for an hour and a half today, that's exactly what they did. But before we get into that, Lobbies and Gentlegrams, I want to tell you guys about something that, unlike Drake, a bunch of you guys have been telling me you've been, Anita Max, winning some free cash from playing mobile games. So I want to put all you guys on to something that almost seems too good to be true, alright? Let me give you a little glimpse into my life. When I'm not making this content for you guys, I have a disgusting addiction to my phone. My daily screen time is higher than Drake on that album cover, higher than Snoop off the edibles. So if you guys suffer that same addiction as me, I want to put you onto something that's going to change your life. FreeCash.com is a program that partners with mobile games that are looking for more users to play their games, and they will literally pay you to play their games for free. All you got to do is sign up using the QR code you see on the screen or using the link in the description of this video. You make an account super easy. All you got to do is put in your email, create a password, verify your email, and then you're good to go. And they got a bunch of games. My favorite is the Monopoly Go, because we're always on the go trying to make some money. Once you make an account, you just click the game you want to play, follow the directions that they give you. The directions are super easy. Usually you just got to download the game and start playing. So it's about time you put that phone addiction to good use. Again, use the QR code you see on the screen or the link in my description. Create an account and you could start making more than $150 just to play a game on your phone. So Akademiks has gone on record multiple times saying that no matter how much glazing he does of the Gaveling Gram, no matter what, Kanye West is the all-time greatest hip-hop artist in history. His words, not mine. Akademiks has also cited that the first video to get him any motion on YouTube was way back in 2013 when he posted a review of Kanye's Yeezus album saying that it was trash. You think 12 years later he finally gets to interview, to him, the greatest rapper of all time, if he's really such a big fan and finally gets this big moment where, you know, it's not Big Boy, it's not Sway, it's not Charlemagne interviewing Kanye, it's Akademiks who gets the opportunity. Obviously, as a fan, he's going to come with at least a couple questions related to the music, right? Especially since Kanye actually did just release an album a couple days before this interview even took place. And I mean, everyone makes the excuse about his terrible comments about the Mustache Man and all that to say, you know, he made Graduation. I mean, the man made Graduation. You're not going to ask him about that? No, instead, Akademiks took the hour that Kanye had right before he boarded a flight to Japan, an escape of all the people threatening his life over the heinous tweets that he made. That hour was spent talking about absolute nonsense, bashing the mother and grandmother of his children for removing them from Kanye when he tried to put them on a song with Diddy or invite the Tate brothers to his house while his kids were there. He doubled down on his F Virgil tweet saying that he posted it because he's evil. That was really his reasoning for saying F Virgil on Twitter, is because he's evil. He also crapped on Playboi Carti, saying he was jealous that Kendrick was on Carti's album, that Kendrick didn't belong on the album. He hates Not Like Us. He claims Kendrick was a puppet by Lucian Grange and UMG to try to take down Drake, even though Kanye West last year made a diss track himself to Drake saying that they were all teaming up for the elimination of Drake, and stating that it was because Drake at that point was the puppet to Lucian Grange and UMG, specifically calling Lucian Grange the CEO of UMG, Drake's rich baby daddy. But no, now he's blaming Kendrick destroying Drake on Lucian Grange. He did the entire interview dressed in, I don't even know if I could say this on YouTube. Basically, what's the first letter of Kanye's name? K? Times that by 3. Kanye Kim Kardashian. K. You know the rest. Akademiks stood there looking Kanye in the eye as he's wearing this costume, as he's saying F Virgil, he's evil, he's the closest thing to God on earth. I can't play clips of this interview, but even Akademiks' security guard looked at that costume in absolute disgust. He had an iced out symbol of the mustache man as his chain. He said that just like Diddy, everyone abuses their significant other. He was saying that Ty Dolla $ign, the artist who stood by Ye throughout all of his anti-Semitic rants, made 2 albums with him that helped him get out of cancellation. He's saying that they no longer get along because Ty Dolla $ign posted on Instagram saying he condones any form of hate speech. Kanye took that as a personal insult to his own character because, again, he is evil. And one question that Akademiks does ask him is, Kanye's always making these grand, almost conspiracies, or really they are full-on conspiracies, that there's this whole larger entity that's in control of everything, that's, puppeteering all these other artists, all these other fashion designers, any industry that Kanye's in. He believes that there's some grand manipulation tactic going on, and that's what's stopping him from fully thriving. That's what's causing him to constantly get canceled. So Akademiks asks him, being this powerful billionaire that you are, being exposed to the curtain peeled back on the industry, on the quote-unquote, evil, manipulative, wicked puppeteering that's going on behind the scenes, Kanye must know something that the audience doesn't, right? So while we're over here trying to connect the dots and make sense of his insane tweets, Akademiks is right in front of the man himself. So he's asking him, can you go into detail and explain what is actually going on behind the scenes here? What is this manipulation that you constantly speak of? And Kanye goes on this whole tangent saying that, what he does is not calculated. He leans into how he feels and he just speaks his truth. So, his daughter going on a song with Diddy, or him dressing up in this triangular head costume, or him even sitting down with Akademiks on that day, it wasn't calculated. It all just kind of naturally happens. And whatever the consequence that comes with it simply comes with it. But people are so scared of speaking their truth, so Kanye is kind of like the voice for the voiceless. And this is similar to Akademiks, right? Because Akademiks prides himself on being one of the first independent hip-hop platforms of the internet age, and because of that, he's kind of uncancelable, right? He used to work for Complex at Everyday Struggle, so when he went on a crazy rant against John Legend's wife, they suspended him from the show for a couple of days. But now he could say whatever disrespectful comments he wants. No one's there to suspend him. No one's there to cancel him. You could stop listening to him, but he still has a platform. It's the same thing with Kanye. What neither of them realize is that they think they gain power by talking crazy. They're really just propping up a bigger clown show and snowballing a bigger downfall that is inevitably destined to happen. I mean, even in Kanye's response, before Akademiks could get to the next question, he goes from talking about how he's just living and speaking his truth, not really caring about the repercussions, just kind of living in the moment, to spiraling and then starting to talk about how Iggy Azalea would hide her kids from Kris Jenner and how upset he was that Kim was flirting with the idea of Northwest collaborating with Playboi Carti. All these rants, all this evil, it's just fueled by jealousy, it's fueled by hatred, it's fueled by delusion, ego, whatever you want to call it. And of course, the music takes a backseat to all of it. And then we do finally get to somewhat music-related topics where Akademiks asked Kanye, a lot of people seeing you crash out on Twitter over Kendrick being on Carti's album, over him doing the Super Bowl, the Grammy Awards, and they look at that as jealousy, right? You've always wanted to be the number one guy. There was a Drink Champs interview from 3 years ago where Kanye said that he stopped making religious music and went back to making, music with explicit messaging within it, because he felt like his spot was taken from him. He felt like Drake had all the hits, A$AP Rocky had the fashion, Travis was, experimenting the best, Kendrick had the bars. So what did Kanye have? He wasn't in that number one spot anymore. So he compromised his religious values to try to reclaim that number one position, and he didn't get that. Obviously, we saw he released Donda and Drake released CLB the same week. Drake outsold him. And then we saw Kanye relentlessly beef with Drake, thinking that that was the means to the end of him reclaiming the throne. Now we're seeing him try to beef with Kendrick because he doesn't like how Kendrick, as Kanye put it, killed his nemesis. He wanted to be the one destroying Drake. He didn't want that to be Kendrick. So again, Akademiks asked him, a lot of people seeing you crap on Kendrick's big moment, claiming or chalking it up to that being jealousy. And Kanye says, of course he's jealous. And he claims that God is a jealous God and he's the closest thing to God on earth. And he acts just how God acts. So you can see here, the man went from, praising God, fearing God, to now constantly comparing himself to God. He had an interview way back when he released Vultures 1 saying that he kind of gave up the whole Jesus is King theme because when he went on his anti-Semitic rants and everybody canceled him and stepped away from him, Jesus wasn't there to save him, I guess. But you can also see here, right? Kanye got canceled, lost everything, then regained everything, became a billionaire once again out of cancellation, and is now doing everything he could to destroy everything he's already built. His relationship with his family, his children, his wealth, his sponsorships, his peers in the rap industry, in the fashion industry. What does Kanye have left besides Big Macus and Akademiks and his mushed-ass man Chain? I mean, this is a live-action interview, so you can literally see Kanye West packing up his luggage, everything he has, to go board a flight to Japan to go hide out because of all the atrocious comments he's made. All he had on him, his entire belonging, was a portable beat maker, a White Lives Matter t-shirt, which he gifted to Big Macus and Akademiks, a Sean Combs Diddy t-shirt, and his 2 costumes that I can't say the name of. Again, this is the man who gave us graduations, so I'll keep breaking down this interview, but it ties back into the bigger theme of this Akademiks era of ego and controversy and crashing out and antics over art, not only leaving these people isolated, losing everything, but threatened by the movement that Kendrick Lamar brings with the value placed back on artistry. But now, speaking of Kendrick, Kanye says that Drake is 100 times the artist that Kendrick Lamar will ever be. Same thing with Future and Young Thug as well in terms of what they've brought to the culture. And when Akademiks asks Kanye like what his issue with Drake is, Kanye attributes it to being, just like a family member that you don't really like. And that goes back to another interview Kanye did where he emphasized that, Kendrick wasn't supposed to kill his nemesis, because if he did, then if Kanye's a superhero, who is he supposed to fight in the movie? Where's the headline? Where's the interest if, his biggest nemesis is defeated? And it's crazy. I mean, to defend, Labrie for 1 second here, Drake has always shown Kanye tons of love and given him grace, like when Kanye wanted to reconcile, Drake did. Drake has always emphasized how much of an inspiration Kanye was to his career. Something must have happened behind the scenes, probably with Kim Kardashian, that Kanye just doesn't want to touch on, and now Drake is the family member that Kanye simply doesn't like. But he still has to say that Drake is a million times better and a million times more important than Kendrick, and he couldn't stand to see Not Like Us and everything that came with the moment of Not Like Us last year throughout the battle. And it's similar to Akademiks, right? Akademiks saying that Kendrick killed hip-hop. Kendrick made it focused on the lyrics, on the battle raps. I'm telling you, both of them feel extremely threatened by the shift that Kendrick brought with Not Like Us. But Kanye wants to feel like he's the one where, he'll make a song that will destroy an artist's career. It can't be Kendrick. It can't be anyone else. Kanye is, according to him, the most godlike figure on this planet. And he emphasizes this talking about his song Moon off of Donda with Kid Cudi and Don Toliver. Even though Kanye was barely on that song, he attributes that song to the end of Frank Ocean's career. Not because Frank Ocean just voluntarily hasn't released an album in almost 10 years at this point. Not because Frank Ocean, I believe, has alluded to the fact that he's kind of tired of being in the industry. No, this random, obscure Kanye West song that I haven't heard anyone talk about since it was released 3 years ago is the reason why Frank Ocean feels threatened to make music today. He says he's the king of taking someone else's sound and doing it better than them, which he's not wrong on per se. I mean, we've seen him do this with Travis, Kid Cudi, all these guys, but the problem is Kanye's music just has not been that good compared to his peers in the last 5 years. Kanye could be as bitter and jealous as he wants, but the reason why he's not where he wants to be in that number one position is because the music, the product, just is not there. And the delusions in this interview only get crazier. I mean, he's talking about how all these celebrities, all these artists are just trying to camouflage or stand in the way of the true God, which is him, and that Drake and all these guys should be writing for or working for him. He's saying that, all black people in positions of power, Obama, Kamala, Virgil at Louis Vuitton, they weren't able to make the real change, but Kanye himself can make that change, and that's why people should be working for him, because he's, again, the closest thing to God. Meanwhile, again, he's wearing a mustache man chain and a Kanye, Kim Kardashian, KK, the rest, costume throughout this entire interview. This is the man that's supposed to represent God on earth and some positive movement to be pushed forward. And simultaneously, the next point he makes is when Akademiks asks him, don't you think it's a little unfair to go at Virgil when, he's not here to defend himself? And Kanye answers that by saying, I'm evil. So all these people should work for you. You're the one who's going to push this change forward. You're the one that we should follow. Again, the closest thing to God on earth. But at the same time, you're talking about being evil. And you attribute that to the fact that you're saying God is evil. Or sorry, he doesn't specifically say God is evil. He says God has the wrath. You can only play with God for so long. Virgil is deceased. Virgil can't play with Kanye. At this point, no one is trying to play with Kanye. No one is trying to even interact with him. He called Jay-Z's kids mentally disabled, using the R word to say it, and Jay-Z did not have a response. No one is responding to Kanye. The most anyone is saying is Ty Dolla $ign saying, I don't condone any form of hate speech. Kanye is absolutely alone in this echo chamber, yelling out to absolutely no one. Yes, no one at this point can cancel him, but no one at this point is even trying to challenge him. There's no point. He then talks about this invisible hand that's been, suppressing him for his whole career. Him not getting his Nike deal, Virgil getting the Louis Vuitton deal over him. Then he compares it to Kendrick's invisible hands puppeteering him into the Super Bowl and the Grammys. And then he talks about how, he was J. Cole and Drake and Travis all in one before they existed, before, as he puts it, they put the quote-unquote Lucian battery packs in them to distract the world from the true leader, which is him. And in a lot of ways, there's tons of parallels between where Kanye's at and where Akademiks is at. Kanye West hasn't given us a good shoe or a good album in years. Kendrick has given us a refreshing 12 months of great performances, amazing projects, diss tracks, moments, everything you could want from the leader of the culture. And with that, quote unquote, Lucian battery pack in Kendrick, it distracts the public away from all these BS antics that Kanye is on. It's the same thing with Akademiks. Akademiks thrives off the violence, off the RICO cases, off the trauma that these rappers experience in their communities when they grow up. He's not sitting there breaking down bars. He doesn't like that. That's a direct threat to the type of media that propels him to the top of the tabloids. If the Lucian battery packs are in Kendrick rather than a Drake or a 6ix9ine, that's terrible for Akademiks' brand and for Kanye's brand. The power isn't in their hands anymore to control the narrative. And it's emphasized that this is what Kanye's trying to accomplish, right? In regaining that power, especially by the end of this interview, where he tells Akademiks that once he tweeted out that thing about, Jay-Z's kids looking, a certain way, that made the mushed-ass man tweets that he had pale in comparison, seem way less worse. Akademiks said, that's the worst thing you tweeted out. And Kanye responded saying, or it was the best, or it was the strongest. So to Kanye, the strength doesn't lie in the innovation within your messaging, within your product, within your music, your shoes, your fashion, whatever it is. The power lies within how far you're willing to push yourself off the deep end and how hard you'll fight against any of the repercussions that come your way from the words that you say. And that's what the internet era is all about, right? That's why it was fitting that Kanye, after his massive Twitter rant, hopped on to say, I need an Akademiks interview ASAP. And Akademiks rushed over, and 90% of the interview was about BS, crapping on other people, barely talking about the music, because that's not what matters. Power comes from saying Jay-Z's kids are, the R word. The power comes from Big Macus and Akademiks reporting on 6ix9ine beefing every rapper in the industry. I guarantee he made 10 times more money and got 10 times more followers reporting on 6ix9ine's antics than he did about the Kendrick and Drake beef when he was literally mentioned in both diss tracks from Drake and Kendrick. And I mean, when was the last time Kanye actually did a sit-down interview with a hip-hop adjacent media personality that was solely focused on the music? The last time I could remember, besides the one Big Boy interview from last year, was 10 years ago on The Breakfast Club. Akademiks had the power to change that, but he decided to let Kanye go on these salacious rants, taunt that mustache man chain right in front of his face, say that he's a god compared to the balding, bearded, belligerent BBL buffoon boyfriend of Big Macus and Akademiks, and there was very little rebuttal on Big Macus and Akademiks' end. Because he knows letting Kanye go on these long-winded delusional rants, that's what's going to drive in the headlines. Not talking about Bully or Donda 3 or Vultures 3 or whatever album he's working on. No, it's not about hip-hop. It's about the drama that surrounds it. And that's why you see when he links up with hip-hop's S-Offender Avengers, is what I call them. They call themselves the biggest independent hip-hop media outlets in the world right now. The whole podcast they did, Adam 22, Trap Lord Ross, Vlad TV, Whack 100. I mean, they sat there all together for 4 hours and maybe spoke on music for about 20 minutes. And I mean, if you look at the people in that room, are these really the faces that represent independent hip-hop media, that represent the cultural conversation that's going on right now? You have Adam 22, who lets his wife sleep with other men on camera. They have a whole reality show about her, picking out a new man to sleep with, and he's the one who judges the men. You have Trap Lord Ross, who, I mean, look, as a YouTube content creator, like, I give him full respect in terms of being able to conjure up the research, the editing, the whole process of actually creating, consistent 5-hour plus documentaries. But look at the topics he's talking about. It's all violence and murders and gangs and arrests. I can't remember the last time he made a documentary that was specifically focused on anything actually music related. And he obviously has this deranged obsession with the violent past of these rappers, I mean, his biggest video ever is a King Von documentary where he's talking about or linking King Von to the unaliving of 7 deceased individuals. And to celebrate the success of that video, he got a King Von tattoo with 7 skulls surrounding King Von, essentially to represent the 7 quote-unquote bodies that he claims King Von caught within his documentary about King Von. He did a documentary about this man who I believe paints his face as the Joker when he raps, like his alter ego is the Joker, but he also, I believe, took the life of Gilly the Kid's son. And while Trap Lord Ross is doing this documentary, he paints his face as the Joker. I mean, these are the type of people that are meant to be dominating the conversation within hip-hop. If he had it his way, everyone would just be unaliving each other because that would get him more clicks. And that's why I say when Akademiks talks about, these street rappers feeling threatened that Kendrick is killing hip-hop, it stretches far beyond just music. It stretches into media as well, because all of these guys would not have a career today if the conversation was solely focused on music like Kendrick Lamar probably wants it to be. Kendrick Lamar doesn't do interviews. He doesn't talk on social media. He doesn't give you a reason to talk about him unless it's for his music. All of his tweets are just links to his songs, his albums, or his performance announcements. If he's the one running the game, a guy like Akademiks does not have much to talk about because, again, he's not sitting there carefully breaking down bars or breaking down themes within albums. That's a direct threat to the type of media that he's spearheading. If the conversation is shifted from violence back onto music, Akademiks' voice is a lot less important. Same thing with Trap Lord Ross, Vlad, all these guys. Wack 100, I mean, I don't know much about him, but I saw that leaked video of him naked in bed yelling at someone on Clubhouse, and I think that tells you all you need to know about the type of energy he's bringing to hip-hop media. I mean, it says something where, in that whole room of a bunch of heads, you could make the argument that Vlad might honestly be the most normal one in terms of the content he puts out. I actually don't mind a lot of the stuff that Vlad puts out. I don't really keep up with, all the criminal gang stuff, right? Like, I'll follow the Vlad TV interviews when he sits down with Boosie or Tony Ayo, or he actually did a great interview with the super producer J.R. Rodham, who brought in Jason Derulo, Ayaz, Sean Kingston. He had an amazing sit down with that guy for over 2 hours where they discussed, the state of music in the early 2010s, all the artists that he broke, how he started his own label, how he was producing, writing music, all the hits that he concocted, really giving a glimpse into behind the scenes on, how the music industry operates, how you could actually get your foot in if you have a knack for producing but want to take things to the next level and start breaking your own artists, having your own record label. But, of course, an interview like that doesn't get nearly as many views as an interview where Vlad is acting like the feds because, again, it's the drama that sells. Like Kanye said, that tweet is his strongest tweet because it's his most controversial tweet. It's his most disgusting tweet. The most disgusting, salacious stuff is the stuff that's going to propel these guys to the forefront of the trending tab on Twitter, the top of the tabloids. That's where the views have been for a long time. But with this battle, we saw something very different. We saw the conversation finally shift back onto music. We saw people breaking down these bars meticulously. I mean, I only got my foot in onto YouTube by discussing this whole beef before it even kicked off, right when Kendrick released Like That. The topic that gave me the ability to be able to sit here and talk hip-hop every day was actual music, which shows you that there is most definitely a shift in the interest of hip-hop fans that's deviating away from what Akademiks was at the forefront of, the violence, the RICO cases, the BS, and back onto the bars. And I mean, I could talk about, what these S-Offender Avengers talked about in their sit-down. They were talking about, how Ruby Rose, when she was dated Playboi Carti or Travis Scott when she was under 18, Wack tries to, I don't know if it's defend it or just say that that's not necessarily illegal depending on where they were. Akademiks is talking about how he has an unreleased, stream with her where she's talking about all that. Then they start going in on this whole Big U RICO case, which, again, I can't give you guys an update on that because I really don't know nothing about that. I'm completely detached. But they spend literally 3 hours of this 4-hour sit-down just talking about that, talking about snitching and RICOs and arrests and whatever. That's the face of hip-hop media. These guys deserve to be at the forefront of the conversation in hip-hop. Apparently, a lot of these guys were associated with Adam 22. They were his staff at No Jumper. And I mean, I know No Jumper for their most viewed videos, which are interviews with legends within hip-hop, XXX, Juice WRLD, that whole SoundCloud era. That's where Adam got his foot in. And that's what No Jumper initially was known for. But have you seen a No Jumper interview that was related to music or interviewing an artist that made any sort of noise since like 2018? Like before 2018, No Jumper was the platform to go on if you were an underground up-and-coming artist trying to make a name for yourself. They broke tons of these SoundCloud artists. They were the face of the SoundCloud era, them and Akademiks. Now they have 4-hour sit-downs talking about RICO cases and snitching. But meanwhile, this massive shift is most definitely happening because look at the emergence of new media that we're seeing within hip-hop, right? You have guys like Playboi Max or DDG, who are most definitely the farthest thing from journalists, and I don't really keep up with them, but they host like full 4-hour streams where they invite artists onto their platform and they cook up music live on stream. Or they do these song battles where they get a bunch of different streamers on stream and they rate different artists' music. And slowly because of that, both of them are becoming two of the most subscribed to Twitch streamers in the industry right now. I don't really keep up with them again, but that's a great visual to see where the future of hip-hop media or hip-hop content is headed towards. Simultaneously, you also have, all these amazing YouTubers, or I don't even know like necessarily what title to give them. Some of them are journalists, some of them are artists themselves, content creators, whatever you want to call them. Justin Hunt, Curtis King, Big Kish, Screwface, Professor Sky, Jeremy Hecht. I'm forgetting a bunch of names, but there's an amazing new wave of YouTube media, which I'm sure if you've seen my channel, you've probably gotten tons of their videos recommended to you as well, where they're doing an amazing job at really shifting the conversation again off of the violence, off of the BS, off of the controversy, and onto the music and the positive change that a guy like Kendrick being at the top of the game can bring to hip-hop overall. I don't know if I mentioned Big Kish, but shout out to him. Let's get it. And then they branch off and do their own online shows, the Culture Uniteds, the Collective, the Bigger Picture. All of those shows being centered on the music. Very much different to the sit-down between Adam22, Snackademics, and Vlad and all them that just happened. There's an amazing resurgence of collaboration and just refreshing conversation with new faces on YouTube, on these Twitch streams, wherever it is. And I hope one day I could be part of that conversation too. I'd love to collaborate with some of these guys that pop up on my feed all the time. They're amazing. And then you have Akademiks still getting all of these big looks, right? Like Kendrick and Drake both name dropping him on their diss tracks. You have him sitting down with Kanye West here. Even Playboi Carti, who is probably the biggest artist of this generation, previewing his new album for Akademiks the night before it was released. Akademiks was able to break all this new information about the features of the project, what it would sound like, etc. And then a day later, he's not even discussing the music anymore. He's discussing the first week sales, the controversy about Kendrick being on the project. I mean, it's not about the music. Again, the music takes a backseat to the drama. And there's a change happening that's a direct threat to him. I mean, you could even see this with Tyler, the Creator, sitting down with Nardwuar. That interview got 50,000 views in the first hour that it was released. And that's just on the media side. I mean, they're saying that Kendrick killed hip-hop. Tyler just sold out 6 nights in the LA Staples Center. If he's really controlling the conversation, not giving any other artist the opportunity to shine, how did Tyler go on to do that? How did he go on to sell 300,000 copies in the first week with his most recent release? Meanwhile, all these rappers Akademiks talks about, Lil Baby, 6ix9ine, A Boogie with the Hoodie, whatever, they're barely selling albums or tours. Kendrick isn't a threat to hip-hop, he's a threat to the toxicity that Akademiks thrives off of. The bar has been raised. People want more. They don't want to be pacified anymore by the sexy, sleepy lullaby love songs. For a while Drake was at the top, all these artists could just coast because, like Kendrick said, the audience was pacified. You make music that pacifies them, he makes music that electrifies them. And it's a lot harder to make money when you have to make a good product to get recognition. In any field, right? Like, if I could just have ChatGPT write up all my videos, my life would be on easy mode, right? I would just copy paste them, record the script, and put out like 10 videos a day. But it doesn't work like that, right? Like, you guys come for the rhymes or my opinion or some sort of human element, or I don't know what. Drop a comment on what you come to these Rapaholics videos for. But I know it's not to hear some generic BS formulaic nonsense take on something. And I think there's a silent majority that's craving for authenticity, that's craving for real music, real commentary, and I think that silent majority is getting louder. Like, there's always been an audience for the Kendricks, the J. Coles, but they take a lot of time off in between their releases. And in between that, there's Drake and 1,000 other mumble rappers to fill their spots. I mean, like Drake has said, they take time off to live their private lives with their families, with their kids. He's really, as he puts it, quote unquote, living that rapper life. So a Kendrick and a Cole, because they take a couple years off with each album, they don't feel as omnipresent. They don't feel like the main face of hip hop at all times. And it's the same thing in the media, right? Like Akademiks has been able to maintain his spot where he's at because he is constantly on stream. He's constantly putting out material. I mean, I kept up with Akademiks for a long time. If you've been following him even for the last year, like he probably spent over 20 hours going through anything related to that Diddy case that just came out. He's probably done the same thing with that Big U Rico case, or the Young Thug Rico case, or the Lil Durk Rico case. But you know what's funny is he probably spent less than 30 minutes deciphering all of the diss tracks that came out throughout the battle, all of the new projects that we've got from Drake or Kendrick since the battle, even the new Playboi Carti album. I don't think he spoke on that project for more than 30 minutes since it released. And he had the thing before the entire world. But now, like he said, you know, like these artists feel threatened because Kendrick has all the buzz. They feel threatened to drop their albums because Kendrick has all the attention. And there's a reason for that, right? Like it's way easier to report on, you know, the 6ix9ine drama or album sales and all the flops and the Rico cases and the Instagram beefs. That's what sells, and that's what's easiest to report on. That's why he could spend 20 hours going through these Diddy cases. That's why Everyday Struggle was great, because Joe Budden balanced it out. And that's why he's probably the biggest hip-hop podcast right now, because he ties in all the drama with also great breakdowns of the music. I mean, he comes at it from a rapper perspective. He was a rapper, so he can decode the music at a higher level than an Akademiks. But even he, for a while, deviated away from, you know, making his podcast strictly about music, because for a while music wasn't selling like it used to. So therefore his podcast wouldn't be, you know, listened to as much as it used to, because music has taken a back seat. People didn't care about it. I mean, even now Joe Budden is saying hip hop is dead because all these rappers are getting locked up and dropping mediocre projects. And I mean, not to downplay his greatness, but I think because he's kind of minimized the greatness that we've seen in the last year, simultaneously his, you know, commentary within the conversation is kind of taking a back seat to a Company Man or a Curtis King or a Fantano, who keeps it solely on the music. And in honor of this Kanye West interview releasing today, I'm kind of going on a Kanye style rant where I'm a little bit all over the place. And I'm not saying that there's not this demand for the salaciousness, the drama, the Rico cases, the violence, all that BS. Akademiks will always have a place within hip hop, but if it continues going in the direction that it is, where the Kendricks, the Tylers, the Doechies, whoever, control the conversation, and there's a growing desire for, you know, conversations surrounding the messaging within the music, the intricacy of the bars, the intricacy and cohesiveness of actual albums that artists are releasing, it's going to create a growing demand for media personalities who comment strictly on that, and B, a bigger threat for artists who have continued to coast through this formulaic, uninspired, violence and gang-infused music that has kept hip-hop pacified for many years now. And just like Kanye saying that, you know, his salacious, outrageous tweets bring him power, bring him strength, the more stock that the audience puts in to the drama, to the violence, to the BS, the more power that the Akademiks, the Trapple Rosses, the No Jumpers have to control the conversation. So it's really up to you, the listener. I mean, we got to earn your time and your attention, right? And you got to devote your attention to things that you feel will benefit you as a human. Enough with the brain rot, enough with the lame plots. Let's bring hip-hop conversation back to a great spot. And with that being said, let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you in the next one.